Okay, all right. So this next section is about putting things into practice. And we're going to invite a couple of apprentices that have been on our level 7, completed our level 7 apprenticeship. And that is, let's see if we're here, Anne-Marie, lovely Anne-Marie, and Adele Patterson. So if I can bring you up to the top to just share your experiences.
Hi everyone, I'm Anne-Marie Kelly. I'm from Heart of Kent Hospice in Maidstone in Kent. I feel I need to start with a disclaimer, which is I don't know Ben. I've never met Ben.
Erica's boss.
What's that?
Are you Erica's boss?
I'm Erica's boss.
My boss is coming.
Oh, did she? Well, there you go. I'm Erica's boss. However, it's really coincidental that I think quite a lot of what Ben has already mentioned really relates to what I want to share with you also. And I think it's important to say that whilst I am a level 7 apprentice, I was the first cohort 2021 to 2023, actually our journey with Happy started way before that. And it was really introduced to us by our chief executive at the time. And I think having that leadership from the top is fundamentally important for reasons that I will go through. Hi, Brendan. I think the first thing to say is when Henry asked me to speak today and talk about what we've introduced to the hospice, I found that I really had to think about what we'd introduced because some of the things are now so ingrained in the organisation I'd forgotten that they weren't always commonplace. So regular snapshots, kits, our keeping touches, they're just what we do at the hospice. We've got rid of the laborious annual appraisal system a number of years ago. And the snapshot process we've now had in place for a number of years. And we review it every couple of years also. The other thing that I was reminded of is that it is standard in our organisation to be open and transparent about our finances, our financial information. That wasn't always the case, and believe me, as a charity, it's not always a pretty picture. But if we were to go along to an all-colleague forum, a heads of department meeting, and not display exactly what our finances say, our colleagues would now find that really unusual. And Ben touched on the freedom within boundaries, and that is also something that we have introduced. And we've got some really practical examples like the development of the website, the intranet that was introduced, the revamp of reception. That was all done with freedom within boundaries. Our colleagues just went off and done it. But we've been able to also implement that for our patient services also. So where our clinical colleagues have identified that we can make improvements, the people who are on the ground doing the work have identified those improvements and delivered them. It hasn't gone through any kind of hierarchy of, I'm the director of income generation, like what do I know about the services that are required for our patients? There are, however, some things that I think we need to do better. And in particular, this picks up on some of the stuff that Ben talked about. So celebrating successes and celebrating mistakes is something that we do at the hospice. And we try to kind of really give it a platform. And so we made it part of our annual awards ceremony. And it's really not working there. I think it's something that actually within teams and within groups we're very open about, but actually having the person stand up in a wider forum to share it, I think is still quite difficult. And actually, I think it was Bernadette that asked the question about recruitment. The thing that I have found is, yes, we're all engaged in recruiting for attitude and training for success, but actually we missed out the competency bit. So I've recruited some people that absolutely embodied from an attitude perspective, but they just didn't have the skills for the job. And we didn't have the capacity to train them. And so I think there's a real balance there. And my final point is about enabling people to do what they're good at. So I've got a member of the fundraising team who is a brilliant salesperson. And that's what you need in fundraising. You need brilliant salespeople, but they're rubbish at the admin. And so I have said to them, you know, if you were a brilliant administrator and you didn't want to go out and sell, I'd have an entirely different challenge on my hands. But the reality of it is that I still need someone to do the admin. So the learning that we're going through is, yes, we embody those values, but you have to have the capacity to make them work in practice at the same time. I'm just going to leave you with one final story, which is actually relates to me personally. And this is just recognition that all of this needs effort all of the time. So I've been at Heart of Kent Hospice for 10 years. I am, Miss Happy. I'm kind of the hospice's version of Henry in the hospice. And I'm really fortunate that we've had 2 CEOs during that time, and they have both really supported me to drive this forward. So in the spirit of people being empowered to make decisions, last week a member of my team came to me informing me that they'd made a really big decision about changing the venue of an event. And instantly my heckles went up and I was like, oh my goodness, this hasn't gone to the chief executive. Is she going to be happy with it? I expected it to have gone to the chief executive. When I went to the next meeting and I was open with everyone saying, look, I'm just putting my hands up. This decision's been made. The fundraising team have agreed it with one of our clinical services teams, and they have decided to do it. I'm sorry I didn't bring it to you earlier. I didn't know this was happening. The chief executive's response was, Anne-Marie, in the spirit of happy, they are the right people to make that decision. And actually now we need to make sure that they deliver on it. So actually that would have been very different if the chief exec wasn't on board with the ethos of happy in the first instance. I hope that's interesting. I hope it's relevant. Happy to answer any questions.
And congratulations, because you are currently the Director of Income Generation, but you're moving into being the CEO.
I am.
And is that because of happy? That's a big question. Yeah.
It is. So actually, on that, Adele, I said this to Adele at the beginning, because we're cohorts, aren't we? Yeah. I did say that actually I've spent many years saying I don't want to be a chief executive. And then the opportunity came up to be the chief executive. I really believe it's because of all of the stuff that I did here on the level 7 that gave me the confidence to say, okay, chief executive is about leading the people and empowering the people. It's not about ultimately making every decision on everyone else's behalf. So yes, I am, but thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Adele, and I am the CEO of International Health Partners. We're an access to medicines charity. We enable access into disaster and conflict regions across the world. And if any of you've got any questions about how we manage supply chain and compliance, please talk to my colleague, Colleen, because she's the expert. But I came into the happy journey, as you say, 2021. And at that time, I'd only been 2 years in my role as CEO, and my reflections on what I learned during that time are more personal. I'd had 2 years running an organisation that was small. We had a period of growth. We had a lot to do. I knew some stuff that was working. I knew some stuff that wasn't working. Enough time to know what I sensed was a style of leadership that I was developing, but not enough time to create a community and a space and a place where I could try and test out some of those ideas. And I think the Level 7 course gave me that opportunity to have the space to test out and to flesh out some of those ideas. Because as Ben was saying, I think pretty much throughout your talk, this should be an encouraging thing that people take away, is that there are no new ideas under the sun. And that's actually okay to say that, because actually there's a reason why there is wisdom that develops over time. So it was a great space to share, to learn, to steal, to make mistakes. I could then take that back into my organisation, and I think one of the things that I've really been encouraged to see is it's encouraged other people to bring ideas as well. So it's not that I am the only source of information. I am a resource investigator. I do like to take things back into the organisation, but actually by coming out and trying out new things, that gave other people the permission to do that as well, and that's been really encouraging for me as the leader. And I would echo everything Anne-Marie was saying around allowing other people to make decisions, or to recognise other people as the experts. You don't have to hold all the information, but it's allowing that permission. So that's, there are many practical things I've learnt. So the Frederick Laloux, I loved all that kind of learning, because we're a faith-based organisation. So actually for us to be encompassing and exploring ideas around things like the source, the ideas around the strength of culture when you meet together around faith every day has been really releasing for us as an organisation, continues to be a really important part of what we do, right down to the culture canvas in its many different iterations. So the laundry to the culture canvas across the teams has been really practical for us. The importance of stakeholder management, of course, it's so basic and fundamental, but to recognise it. All of this in a context where you can learn with really great teachers, really great people. You're all on a journey together, fast learning some very recognisable ideas, some less orthodox ideas, but it's a space and a place and a pace, isn't it, for us to try lots of things out. And I'm sure as I continue to revisit the notes, the learning will continue. We were just talking about revisiting the notes. There's always something to learn. So if anybody's thinking about doing the Level 7 course, I think there's space in the November space, isn't there? The November cohort. I'd really encourage you to do it. You will only learn and learn and learn. So thank you, Henry, and the team for what you've put together. Congratulations on becoming an employee-owned organisation, and we look forward to celebrating with you later. Thank you.